he comes along and tells the world how great, what a sexy chick I am. So in a way, it was I had to laugh.
Bette Midler went to a weird dinner at Trump Tower. Only 5 people were there. Trump made up a fake birthday party just to meet her. But Midler had an even bigger secret. In the 1980s, she had a total breakdown. She slept all day. She cried all night. She drank too much. Her career almost ended. Someone on a movie set made her feel stupid. She felt so bad she couldn't work. Now, after 50 years, Midler is finally telling the whole story of how she hit rock bottom. Bette Midler was born on December 1, 1945, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Her father, Fred Midler, worked as a house painter, and her mother, Ruth, was a homemaker and seamstress. Both parents came from Jewish immigrant families in New Jersey, with roots in Russia, Poland, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Money was always tight. Midler later described her childhood as hardscrabble and admitted that her family was very poor. She grew up in a neighborhood where most of the kids were Asian, which often made her feel like an outsider. Life wasn't easy, but she found comfort in Hawaii's beauty. The bright blue skies, the ocean, and the lush green landscapes gave her a sense of escape. Those images would stay with her for the rest of her life. Even as a child, she wanted more. Acting wasn't just a dream. It was a way out. She idolized actresses like Ethel Barrymore, even though she barely knew who they were. She just knew she wanted to be on stage. Her father didn't support that idea. He wanted her to find a stable job, something practical. But Midler had other plans. She worked hard in school, graduated as valedictorian from Radford High School, and enrolled at the University of Hawaii to study drama. She didn't stay long. She knew that if she wanted to make it, she had to leave. In 1965, at 19 years old, she packed her bags and moved to New York City. She enrolled at HB Studio in Greenwich Village, where she studied theater under Uta Hagen. HB Studio was known for training some of the best actors, and Hagen was a legend. She didn't just teach acting, she taught performers how to bring characters to life. Midler took those lessons seriously. They shaped the way she performed for the rest of her career. Not long after arriving in New York, she started landing small roles. She performed in off-off Broadway productions like Miss Nefertiti Regrets and Cinderella Revisited. That second show was something different. During the day, it was a children's play. At night, it became an adult-themed performance with a completely different tone. Midler had to adjust to both audiences, which helped her develop the versatility that later became one of her trademarks. In October 1966, she got her big break. She joined the Broadway cast of Fiddler on the Roof, playing Rivka and understudying the role of Tzeitel. By February 1967, she took over the role of Tzeitel full-time. The show was a massive hit, running for over 3,000 performances. When she performed Matchmaker on the 1968 Tony Awards telecast, people took notice. It was a glimpse of what was to come. But her time in New York wasn't just about career success. It was also marked by deep personal loss. While she was performing in Fiddler on the Roof, her sister Judy came to visit. What should have been a happy time ended in tragedy. Judy was killed in a terrible accident. The loss hit hard, but Midler kept going. She poured herself into her work and refused to give up. Bette Midler's rise to fame started in a place no one would expect. In the summer of 1970, she took a job singing at the Continental Baths, a gay bathhouse in the basement of the Ansonia Hotel in New York City. She was booked for a 3-month run, earning $50 per show. Later, she renegotiated to $100. The venue was more than just a nightclub. It had a disco dance floor, a cabaret lounge, and even vending machines stocked with KY jelly. It was a social space where gay men could gather, but now it was about to become the birthplace of a star. At first, the audience didn't know what to make of her. The club was used to DJs and male performers, not a young woman with bright red hair, second-hand dresses, and a sharp sense of humor. But Midler knew how to win over a crowd. She sang songs from the 1940s, told outrageous jokes, and turned every performance into an event. She even opened her show with the Star-Spangled Banner, which often led to playful chaos. Men dropping their towels and mooning celebrity guests. It wasn't long before the place was packed every night. Andy Warhol, Alfred Hitchcock, Mick Jagger, and even Princess Margaret came to see her perform. The space itself was far from glamorous. The humid air threw the piano out of tune, and the lighting was nothing more than tin cans with bulbs inside. But Midler didn't care. She was in her element. One person who played a huge role in those nights was Barry Manilow. He was a struggling musician at the time, making $75 per gig as her piano accompanist. They met through the club's owner, Steve Ostro, who suggested Manilow when Midler needed someone to play for her. It turned out to be a perfect match. Manilow wasn't just a pianist. He helped shape her sound and later co-produced her debut album, The Divine Miss M, which came out in December 1972. Those nights at the baths weren't easy. The sound system was unreliable, and the piano was often out of tune. Manilow had to borrow microphones from friends' studios just to make sure they could be heard properly. But all those struggles paid off. The performances sharpened their skills and helped them connect with an audience that truly appreciated what they were doing. Midler's debut album was a hit. The Divine Miss M reached number 9 on Billboard's Top 200 chart and earned platinum certification. It included songs like Do You Wanna Dance and Friends, but it was Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy that became her first No. 1 adult contemporary hit. Critics loved her ability to mix humor with heartfelt performances. Robert Christgau called the album prophetic and liberating. In 1973, Midler won the Grammy Award for Best New Artist, proving she wasn't just a novelty act. But even with mainstream success, she never forgot where it all started. The nickname Bathhouse Betty stuck with her, and she embraced it. She knew those early performances were about more than just music. They were about visibility. At a time when gay culture was still hidden from the mainstream, she stood on stage and performed with pride. In 1998, she released an album called Bathhouse Betty, paying tribute to the audience that had supported her from the beginning. Bette Midler's film career took off in 1979 with The Rose. It was her first movie, and she wasn't just acting. She was living the role. She played Mary Rose Foster, a rock star struggling with fame and addiction. The performance was so powerful that it earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. Winning an Oscar for a debut role was rare, but even getting nominated put her in an elite group. She also won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical. It was clear, Midler wasn't just a singer trying to act. She was a true performer. The film itself wasn't officially a biopic, but it was heavily inspired by Janis Joplin's life. Midler's portrayal was raw and real. She showed the highs of stardom and the crushing weight that came with it. Her live concert scenes had an intensity that critics and audiences couldn't ignore. She brought everything she had, and it paid off. The film received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Supporting Actor for Frederick Forrest. It was also recognized for Best Film Editing and Best Sound, proving it wasn't just Midler who made The Rose special. Her transition from music to acting wasn't just smooth, it felt natural. She had spent years performing in places like New York's Continental Baths, an underground venue that helped shape her as an artist. That energy, that ability to connect with an audience, was something she carried into the film. Some doubted whether she could handle such an intense role, but she didn't just prove them wrong. She set a new standard. The Rose became one of the most iconic music dramas ever made, and Midler had officially arrived in Hollywood. Then came the song. If the film was her breakout as an actress, The Rose was the song that made her a legend. Written by Amanda McBroom, it was almost forgotten before the movie, but once it became part of the soundtrack, everything changed. The song was released as a single and climbed to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It dominated the adult contemporary chart for 5 weeks straight. Midler's performance of The Rose was filled with emotion, and audiences felt every word. In 1981, it won her the Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. She was up against legends like Barbra Streisand and Donna Summer, but she came out on top. The song's message of love and resilience touched people worldwide, making it one of her most celebrated tracks. Even though The Rose won the Golden Globe for Best Original Song, it was disqualified from the Academy Awards because it wasn't written specifically for the film. That didn't stop it from becoming a classic. Over 40 years later, it remains one of her most streamed songs, with millions of plays on platforms like Spotify. Bette Midler's career is filled with unforgettable moments, from powerful ballads to iconic film roles. Two of her most celebrated songs, Wind Beneath My Wings and From a Distance, turned into cultural landmarks. Wind Beneath My Wings was originally written in 1982 and recorded by several artists, but it was Midler's version from The Beach's soundtrack in 1988 that became legendary. It soared to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in June 1989 and won 2 Grammy Awards in 1990, including Record of the Year. The song's heartfelt lyrics made it a staple at funerals and memorials, even ranking as the most played song at British funerals in 2002. Midler's connection to the song didn't end there. She performed it at the 2014 Oscars during the In Memoriam segment, giving it yet another emotional revival. In a completely different setting, she also sang it on The Simpsons in 1993, alongside Krusty the Clown, a moment fans of the show still remember. Sales-wise, the song was a major success, earning platinum certification in the US for selling over 1 million copies. Just 2 years after Wind Beneath My Wings, Midler struck gold again with From a Distance, released in 1990 as part of her album Some People's Lives. The song climbed to number 1 on the adult contemporary chart and reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It won a Grammy for Song of the Year in 1991 and became one of the most played songs on the radio, earning a 3 Million Airs Award from Broadcast Music Incorporated. These 2 songs, both deeply emotional and uplifting, became defining moments in Midler's music career, proving her ability to bring raw emotion to every note. Her success in music was matched by her triumphs in film. Midler's role in Beaches was a perfect blend of acting and music. The film, which tells the story of a lifelong friendship, became a classic, and its soundtrack remains her best-selling album, with over 5 million copies sold worldwide. While Beaches showcased her dramatic range, Hocus Pocus in 1993 proved she could bring larger-than-life comedy to the screen. Playing Winifred Sanderson, the leader of a trio of witches brought back to life on Halloween, Midler delivered a performance full of energy, humor, and just the right amount of menace. The film didn't break records at the box office, earning $45 million on a $28 million budget, but it found new life on television. By 2018, its annual Halloween broadcasts on Freeform averaged over 8 million viewers, solidifying its status as a cult classic. Midler's rendition of I Put a Spell on You remains one of the movie's most beloved scenes, and she returned to the role in Hocus Pocus 2 in 2022. The sequel became Disney Plus' most-watched film during its opening weekend, proving that audiences never stopped loving the Sanderson sisters. Midler's comedic timing shined again in The First Wives Club, 1996, where she starred alongside Diane Keaton and Goldie Hawn. The film, a witty take on revenge and female empowerment, was a massive hit, grossing $181 million worldwide on a $30 million budget. The chemistry between the 3 actresses and the film's themes of resilience and solidarity made it one of Midler's most successful movies. Whether she was bringing audiences to tears in Beaches, making them laugh in Hocus Pocus, or inspiring them in The First Wives Club, Midler's presence on screen was always unforgettable. The Beaches soundtrack, released in December 1988, became one of the best-selling soundtracks of its time. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart and achieved triple platinum status in the US, selling over 3 million copies. Globally, it surpassed 5 million units. The album's biggest hit was Wind Beneath My Wings, but other tracks, like Under the Boardwalk, played a key role in setting the film's nostalgic tone. Midler's ability to bring music and storytelling together made the soundtrack a defining moment in her career. Beyond music and film, Midler's personal life has been just as fascinating. Her marriage to Martin von Hasselberg is a Hollywood rarity, spontaneous yet lasting. The two met in 1984, and after only 6 weeks of dating, they decided to elope. Their wedding was far from glamorous, taking place in a small Las Vegas chapel at 2 a.m., officiated by an Elvis impersonator. The ceremony cost just $45, and there were no professional photos, at least not until 2008, when the chapel unexpectedly sent them pictures decades later. Despite the whirlwind nature of their marriage, Midler and von Hasselberg have remained together for over 40 years. One of the secrets to their long-lasting relationship? Sleeping in separate bedrooms. Midler has openly shared that her husband's snoring made this arrangement necessary, but it also gave them personal space, which she believes helped strengthen their bond. While it might seem unconventional, the approach clearly worked for them, and they aren't alone. Other celebrities have also spoken about how separate sleeping spaces can improve a relationship. Their marriage thrived despite the demands of Midler's career, thanks in part to von Hasselberg stepping away from his job as a commodities trader to focus on raising their daughter, Sophie. Born in 1986, Sophie von Hasselberg grew up surrounded by Hollywood glamour, but was raised with a strong sense of independence. She attended Yale University, where she initially studied sociology and East Asian studies. She even spent time working in China, learning Mandarin, and gaining experience in advertising. Eventually, though, Sophie followed in her mother's footsteps. She returned to Yale in 2011 to study acting, earning a Master of Fine Arts degree in 2014. Not long after, she made her theatrical debut off-Broadway in Billy and Ray, directed by Gary Marshall. Her film career began with a role in Woody Allen's Irrational Man, 2015, where she acted alongside Joaquin Phoenix and Emma Stone. From there, she expanded into television, appearing in Pose: An American Horror Story, as well as films like Ask for Jane and Give Me Pity. Bette Midler's career has been filled with unforgettable moments. In 2017, she took on the role of Dolly Gallagher Levi in the Broadway revival of Hello, Dolly, and delivered a performance that became one of the defining highlights of her career. The production opened on April 20th, 2017, at the Schubert Theater in New York City, and ran for 550 performances, including 34 previews, before closing on August 25th, 2018. Midler had been in the entertainment industry for decades, but this role brought her something she had never won before: a competitive Tony Award. She took home the Tony for Best Actress in a leading role in a musical, a moment that was especially meaningful since she had previously only received a special Tony Award in 1974 for adding luster to the Broadway season. She also won the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Actress in a Musical. The show itself was a massive hit, winning 4 Tony Awards out of 10 nominations, including Best Revival of a Musical. Excitement for Hello, Dolly was huge even before the first performance. On the day tickets went on sale, they brought in a record-breaking $9 million. The production was directed by Jerry Zaks and choreographed by Warren Carlyle. The visual design was breathtaking thanks to Santo Loquasto, who won a Tony Award for his scenic and costume designs. Midler's co-stars included David Hyde Pierce as Horace Vandergelder and Gavin Creel as Cornelius Hackle, both of whom added their own charm to the classic musical. For Midler, playing Dolly was more than just another role. She called it the peak of her life. It was a dream she had waited years to fulfill, and audiences could feel that energy in every performance. Even her Tony acceptance speech was unforgettable. When the orchestra tried to cut her off, she refused to leave the stage and talked right over the music, determined to thank everyone who had supported her. It was a perfect example of the bold, unstoppable spirit that had made her a star in the first place. Beyond acting, Midler has also made an impact as a Broadway producer. One of her biggest successes in this role was Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, a musical based on the 1994 Australian film The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. The show opened on Broadway on March 20, 2011, at the Palace Theatre and ran for 526 performances before closing on June 24, 2012. It told the story of two drag queens and a transgender woman traveling across the Australian desert in a lavender bus named Priscilla. Along the way, they faced challenges, discovered themselves, and performed pop hits like I Will Survive and It's Raining Men. Midler saw the musical in London's West End and knew right away that it had to come to Broadway. Her involvement as a producer gave the show a boost, but more than that, it showed her commitment to supporting stories that were bold, colorful, and full of heart. The costumes, designed by Tim Chappell and Lizzie Gardner, were some of the most spectacular ever seen on Broadway. They won both a Tony and an Olivier Award for Best Costume Design. The show also received 2 Tony nominations and was praised for blending high-energy entertainment with a powerful message about identity and acceptance. Midler's influence goes far beyond the stage. In 1995, she founded the New York Restoration Project, known as NYRP. This nonprofit organization was created to restore neglected green spaces in lower-income areas of New York City. She was deeply concerned about the lack of well-maintained parks and gardens in these neighborhoods and wanted to do something about it. New York Restoration Project became the only citywide conservancy dedicated to bringing private resources to underfunded public spaces. One of the organization's biggest victories came in 1999. The city had planned to auction off community gardens for commercial development, but NYRP stepped in and saved 52 of them. These gardens became important gathering spaces for local residents, offering areas for community events, fitness programs, and environmental education. But Midler didn't stop there. She wanted to take on even bigger projects. In Fort Washington Park, NYRP organized over 100 volunteers to remove trash and debris from the Hudson River shoreline. The once neglected space was transformed into a clean, welcoming park. Fort Tryon Park underwent a similar revival, with paths being cleared and recreational areas restored. Another major project focused on Sherman Creek Park along the Harlem River. It had been an illegal dumping ground for years, but NYRP turned it into Swindler Cove Park, a beautiful green space with wetlands, a freshwater pond, and community gardens. Midler's dedication to urban renewal earned her the Jane Jacobs Medal in 2013. The award recognized her work in making cities more sustainable and livable, particularly for those in underserved communities. Through NYRP, she helped create parks and gardens that continue to improve the quality of life for thousands of New Yorkers. Bette Midler has always been outspoken, but sometimes her words have sparked intense backlash. In July 2022, she found herself in the middle of a controversy after posting a tweet that many saw as anti-trans. She wrote, "Women of the world, we are being stripped of our rights over our bodies, our lives, and even of our name. They don't call us women anymore. They call us birthing people, or menstruators, and even people with vaginas. Don't let them erase you. The reaction was immediate. Many believed her words dismissed transgender and non-binary people who also experience pregnancy. Critics argued that terms like birthing people don't erase women, but include those who don't identify as female. Author Roxane Gay and other activists pointed out that inclusive language is meant to acknowledge different gender identities, not take anything away from women. Midler's fans were especially disappointed. She had been a strong supporter of LGBTQ+ rights for decades, performing in gay bathhouses during the 1970s and building a loyal following within the queer community. Irish drag queen Panty Bliss and others urged her to reconsider her stance, reminding her that trans rights and women's rights are not in conflict. She quickly responded with a follow-up tweet. She explained that her words were inspired by a New York Times opinion piece about the erasure of the word women in certain discussions. She insisted she had no intention of being exclusionary and reaffirmed her support for marginalized communities. But for many, the damage was already done. Some felt her explanation didn't fully acknowledge the concerns behind the backlash. Others argued that her words contributed to a larger divide in feminist and LGBTQ+ spaces. This wasn't the first time Midler had faced criticism for her comments on gender issues. In August 2016, after Caitlyn Jenner's reality show, I Am Kate was canceled, Midler tweeted, "Now that I Am Kate has been canceled, will she go back to being Bruce? Will Chris take him back? Do I smell a re-wedding?" The backlash was swift. Many saw the tweet as transphobic, suggesting that Jenner's transition was temporary or for attention. Some called the comment vile and accused Midler of undermining the struggles transgender people face. The outrage was especially strong given her long history of supporting LGBTQ+ rights. She later deleted the tweet and issued an apology. She wrote, "Dear friends, whom I have always supported. Sorry last tweet offended. An idle musing. I seem to have misread the temper of the times." But the apology received mixed reactions. Some accepted it, while others felt it was dismissive and didn't fully address why the original comment was harmful. Bette Midler has seen her share of strange moments in Hollywood, but few were as bizarre as the dinner party Donald Trump hosted in the 1990s. She and her husband, Martin von Hasselberg, arrived at Trump Tower expecting a lively birthday celebration for Andre Leon Talley, the former creative director of Vogue. Instead, they found themselves in a small private gathering with just 5 people: Midler, her husband, Talley, Donald Trump, and Melania Trump. The night felt strange from the start. Midler had come out of admiration for Talley, but the atmosphere was far from festive. There was no large guest list, no real celebration, just a quiet dinner with no clear purpose. For years, she struggled to understand why she had even been invited. Eventually, she came to a conclusion. Trump may have set up the entire evening as an excuse to meet her, using Talley's influence at Vogue to bring her to his table. That thought made the night even more unsettling. Her later outspoken criticism of Trump made the memory even more fascinating. During his presidency, she openly called him unfit for leadership, saying he was more of a performer than a politician. Looking back, that odd dinner seemed like a preview of his personality, staged, calculated, and always working towards some hidden motive. But not all of Midler's struggles have been as strange as that night. Some were deeply personal, like the battle she fought in the early 1980s when her career nearly fell apart. After her critically acclaimed performance in The Rose in 1979, she won 2 Golden Globes and seemed poised for Hollywood success. But the transition from music to film wasn't as smooth as she had hoped. Her concert tours had drained her, and despite her award-winning performance, Hollywood didn't fully embrace her as a leading actress. She found herself stuck, unsure of what came next. That uncertainty led to one of the darkest times in her life. She later admitted that she spent days sleeping, nights crying, and drank heavily to cope. She described it as a complete nervous breakdown. One particular experience on a film set left her feeling humiliated after she was accused of grandstanding, a criticism that cut deep and pushed her even further into despair. What saved her was the stage. Returning to live performances reminded her of why she started in the first place. She once called performing her core business, the thing that grounded her no matter what else was happening. Touring pulled her out of her depression, but she also sought professional help, which played a crucial role in her recovery. Over time, she found balance again. By speaking openly about her struggles, she has helped others see that even the most successful people face moments of doubt and pain. Seeking help is not weakness, it's survival. Decades later, Midler's career had come full circle when she was honored as a Disney legend at the D23 Expo on August 23, 2019. The award recognized her contributions to the Walt Disney Company, celebrating artists who have made a lasting impact. Midler couldn't attend the ceremony in person, but her daughter, Sophie von Hazelberg, accepted the award for her, reading a speech filled with humor and gratitude. In it, Midler joked that after 50 years in entertainment, she could finally call herself an artist. Her connection to Disney started in the late 1980s with her voice role as Georgette in Oliver and Company in 1988. A few years later, she took on what would become one of her most famous roles, Winifred Sanderson in Hocus Pocus in 1993. The film wasn't a massive hit at the time, but it became a Halloween classic over the years, cementing her place in Disney history. Beyond Disney, her career has been filled with achievements. She has won 4 Grammy Awards, 3 Emmy Awards, and a Tony, proving her versatility as a singer, actress, and comedian. Her influence extends far beyond entertainment. She is also a dedicated philanthropist, working to improve communities through her nonprofit work.